What is up, boyos, and welcome to Last Week in Games, where everything is video games. My name is Jake, and today I'm joined by nobody. So I've taken the last month off. Around Christmas time, I decided I just needed some time away from the channel. I've done some live streams here and there, so you can check out the VODs on YouTube and watch live, twitch.tv/lonercast. But I just had a lot of stuff happen to me over the past month, and I just needed a little bit of time off. But that being said, I'm so happy to be back. One of my favorite things to do is to talk about video games, and I can't think of anything I love more than talking about video games, except for maybe playing video games. That's maybe a close second. So we have missed a lot of things over the past, month. I think like one of the biggest things that happened over the last month was that there was a Insomniac leak, and I thought about making a video about it, but whatever. Everyone talked about it. There was an Insomniac leak. If you want to know what the details are of that Insomniac leak, go ahead. I know there's been a lot of drama out there about whether or not we should share the information that was part of the Insomniac leak. Personally, I think if you're a journalist, it's your job to report on these kinds of things. Not that I'm a journalist, but the people who are complaining about it the most were journalists, and I think if you're a journalist, you should probably just report on it. Obviously, don't report on doxed information of like the staff or whatever, but I don't think it's a big deal. Also, Insomniac came out of it looking really good. Like the stuff that was leaked made them look really good. It sucks that they don't get that moment to like drop some of those things. Like we already know some of them exist, but whatever, man. I don't work for Insomniac, and these journalists don't work for Insomniac as far as I'm aware. So, it is what it is. Now let's get into what happened last week, though, shall we? That's the point of this show, Last Week in Games, and we're going to talk about last week's gaming news. And there was one big piece of news that happened last week, and that was, of course, that there was an Xbox, what was it called? An Xbox Developer Direct. So I say, let's just go through this bad boy. Let's talk about everything they showed off, and let's just jump right into it, as Philip DeFranco once said. Personally, I really liked the Direct. I like that they came out before it and said, hey, we're going to talk about like 5 things. We're not going to talk about like too many things, but the things we're talking about are exciting. And I also think the format of the show was really cool. The like developer aspect of it. I think going into the like developer offices and actually interviewing the developers is great. And also one of my favorite things about this Direct was they just showed gameplay. Like, obviously, there were some trailers as well, but, like, it was gameplay. And that was front and center. And I think that's how all of these things should be. If you don't have gameplay to show, don't show your game. I want to know what I'm about to get into. If you're not going to show me what the game is, I don't really care that much, to be honest. So I had this cool, like, overview thing where it, like, circled each one of these things. And, of course, it started with Obsidian to talk about Avowed, which I was surprised by. I wasn't expecting to hear a whole lot about Avowed, just because I thought this game wasn't as far along in development as it actually is. We actually got to see some gameplay of what's going on, and it does sort of have like a Skyrim sort of vibe to it. It's not going to be like Skyrim, and it probably won't be as expansive as Skyrim, but it is that sort of like fantasy first person. You get spells and stuff, and it looks like you can like sort of dual wield your weapons. And there's also guns in the game, which is weird. I think it looks great. I think this game looks like a lot of fun. Obsidian is really, really good at making games. I think we're all aware of this. And they said it's coming out in fall 2024. It's one of those things where I'll believe it when I see it. But, it would make sense for them to release it in fall, because it's always good for one of these big publishers to have a game come out in fall. Although I think there's another game on here that would be better suited for that fall slate. And we'll talk about that in just a minute. The next thing they went to was Ninja Theory, who of course is making the Hellblade games. And they talked pretty extensively about Hellblade 2 and the sort of technology that goes into it. from what they've shown, this game looks absolutely beautiful. We've seen so much of this game already. I think we saw it at one of like Jeff Keighley's things forever ago. But still, every time I see this game, I'm just blown away by how beautiful it looks. The first game was so ahead of its time, and the technology they used to make it look the way they made it look, I have no idea how they did it. The audio design of the first game is insane, and they went into detail about how in this next game, they used a lot of Dolby features to make it even more insane sonically. So I'm very excited for this game. And the thing I'm most excited about with this game is that they gave it a release date of May 21st, 2024. I knew that this game was coming out this year, but the question was, when is it coming out this year? And the fact that they just came out and said, May 21st, it's coming out this year, and it's coming out in summer, that's great. I thought we were going to get the game last year, but we didn't, probably just because it needed a lot more time, and it looks like they're cooking up something really magical over there. One thing they said that kind of surprised me was they said a short narrative-driven game. Now, the first game is short, for sure, and narrative-driven, of course, and I don't have a problem with it being narrative-driven. But I was expecting this game to be a lot longer than the first one, but, you know, a short game, I'm fine with. I just expected, with the amount of time that they put into this game, that it would be like double as long as the first game, which I guess double as long as the first game is still pretty short compared to something like Starfield, you know what I mean? We got a little surprise announcement at this thing, and it was Square Enix showed up to talk about the new Mana game. There's been so many of these Mana games. I mean, they did like a showcase of like, look at all of these different Mana games we've done, Secrets of Manas, Trials of Mana, like just so many of these Mana games, and they're like, this one though is gonna be the best one. And for what they showed off, it looks pretty cool. It looks pretty fun. It's got sort of like a Kingdom Hearts gameplay style to it. You know, it kind of looks like that. Definitely got that ARPG vibe to it, you know, an action RPG sort of thing going on. If you're into action RPGs, this game is definitely for you. I'm not a huge action RPG fan, but I see this and I see the appeal of it. And if I had unlimited time in my life, like I had an infinite lifespan, I was immortal and didn't have to work all the time, this might be a game I'll play. But considering that's not the case, I probably won't play it. But I definitely see the appeal. This game was also announced to be released in summer of 2024. They didn't give an exact release date. They just said summer. Probably because it's Square Enix and they want to reveal that themselves at their own event. But anytime I see something like summer 2024 or fall 2024, I always assume, nah, it's going to get moved. That's just the video game industry now, you know what I mean? The next thing we saw was a game from Oxide Studios. They're making a sort of Civ type game. It's called Aura History Untold. And I've been a pretty massive Civ fan for a long time. I really enjoy the Civ games. And this game looks like, what if we brought Civ into the modern age? There hasn't been a new Civ type game in a long time, besides like, you know, Civ 6 or whatever. But this is a brand new franchise from this team. And this game looks really cool. It looks really complicated. They showed off a lot of systems for this game, which might put a lot of people off. But for diehard Civ fans, like, this is going to be sick. And the fact that, you know, you could start in like prehistoric times, and then also at a certain point you could also have like mechs and stuff. It seems really cool. I've been dying for another sort of 4X type strategy game like a Civ, and this might be the game. I think the last like 4X game I was really into was Stellaris, and I really enjoyed my time with Stellaris. Wish I got to play a bit more of it. And then of course, you know, Civ 5, such a fun game, and this looks like Civ 5 on crack, so definitely something to look out for. And this game was also announced for fall 2024. Once again, I'll believe it when I see it. It would be nice. It'd be nice if we get a game in fall 2024. If we get this game in fall 2024. But with all the systems and everything going on in this game, I could definitely see this game getting pushed for sure. All right, now to talk about the game everyone's been talking about and everybody's been waiting for. The new Indiana Jones game. We got the title of it. It's called Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, which is a name. That's a name for an Indiana Jones game. You know, we got Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom and Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, you know? So this game is actually about people trying to find my asshole. They did show off the new Indiana Jones by Machine Games, and one of the things that everyone had been talking about leading up to this presentation was whether or not the new Indiana Jones was going to be in first person or third person. The reason this was a topic of conversation is because, of course, Machine Games makes first-person video games. But when you think of a game like Indiana Jones, I think the first place you go is Uncharted, which of course is a third-person game, and it's like a third-person platforming action game. And you sort of expect Indiana Jones to be the same sort of game. But as soon as they announced Machine Games, I was kind of immediately under the assumption that this was going to be a first-person game. And of course, it is a first-person game. There are some traversal bits where it pushes out into third person, but it seems like most of the game you're going to spend in first person, which I think is fine since Machine Games is making it, and Machine Games is great. You know, they made the Wolfenstein games. These motherfuckers just hate Nazis, which is awesome. Todd Howard came out and, you know, did a little bit of talking, and because he's an executive producer on the game, and then it cut to the trailer, and the trailer, first of all, beautifully animated. It looks so good. And it sort of teases Indiana Jones' face there for a minute because you're like, oh, what's he going to look like? What's he going to look like? And of course, they finally show his face. And his face looks like Harrison Ford, which is a great decision. I think for a lot of characters, you can go in different directions. Like Spider-Man. Spider-Man doesn't have like one person associated with him. You know, he started in comic books. So he's had a million different faces, a million different artist interpretations, 3 different actors play him in the movies, several different cartoon series. So like his face could be anything. So you could just use the mocap face or animate some sort of generic face for Spider-Man. But Indiana Jones is so associated with Harrison Ford, so much so that he's been asked in interviews, hey, who would play you? Who should play Indiana Jones after you're done? And he said, nobody, because I'm Indiana Jones, which is so true. And that probably won't be the case forever, but his face and Indiana Jones just go hand in hand. The game looks absolutely stunning, I think. You know, I've heard a lot of people say the face looks kind of weird and stuff like that. But personally, I think it looks pretty good. You're not going to be seeing Indiana Jones's face too much in this game anyway, because you're going to be in first person. I think running around in first person and just like whipping your whip around, shooting people, like that sounds like really a lot of fun to do as Indiana Jones. And if you wanted a third person Indiana Jones, all I have to say is go play Uncharted. It already exists. This just seems like a fun, fresh take on Indiana Jones in video games. And it looks bombastic. It looks ridiculous. It looks like it has everything you want from Indiana Jones. They have a lot riding on this game, both Machine Games and Disney, because, of course, the last 2 Indiana Jones films haven't been great. And if this game flops, like, the IP of Indiana Jones, I think, is just, like, useless at that point. Like, there's no reason to even revisit it. It's just a relic of the past. But if this game hits, we could see a brand new franchise started up and just see like multiple Machine Games, Indiana Jones games come out over the next few years, which would be really cool. And that's what I mean by saying, you know, Machine Games has a lot riding on this, because I believe this is their first game as a studio underneath Xbox. So they have something to prove when it comes to being a studio underneath Xbox. And they also have something to prove as far as just having a huge IP and showing that they can pull it off. And I have a lot of faith in them, because I think those Wolfenstein games are excellent. This game did get a release date of 2024. That's all it said, 2024, which I think makes more sense as the fall game for Microsoft. But I think the reason they didn't say fall 2024 is because this game is probably going to get pushed to next year, if I had to assume. When you have such an arbitrary date like 2024 and it's, almost February, there's a good chance your game's getting delayed, and that's fine. I think it's fine if they need to delay it, take as much time as you need for this game. From what they've shown, I think it looks excellent. So very excited for that. I think this was a very good presentation from Xbox. They've got a lot of great games coming out this year. The real question on my mind is, where the fuck is Sony? Sony doesn't seem to have anything coming out this year besides like Helldivers. So we'll see. I would assume in the next couple weeks to months, we will see some sort of PlayStation Direct where they will announce something to come out in this year, but we'll see. Because right now, I really think all they have is Helldivers. What do you guys think Sony's going to release in the next year? Why don't you leave a comment down below and let me know? I've got one more piece of news that I want to go over, and it is a big piece of news. We've got the best-selling games of December 2023 and the best-selling games of 2023. This comes to us from Circana, which was formerly known as MPD. They kind of tally up all of the video game sales of the year and give us a nice little beautiful list here. So let's see what the best selling games of December 2023 were. At number 1 was Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3. At number 2 was Super Mario Bros. Wonder. At number 3 was Madden NFL 24. At number 4 is Hogwarts Legacy. At number 5 is Marvel's Spider-Man 2. At number 6 is Avatar Frontiers of Pandora. At number 7 is EA Sports FC 24. At number 8 is Mortal Kombat 1. At number 9 is NBA 2K24. And at number 10 is Mario Kart 8. This is a pretty interesting list just because we see games here that in previous months were lower, but they're higher this month. And I just have to assume that's for Christmas. Like Mario Kart 8 last month was ranked at number 21 and it was at number 10 for December. And I believe that's just because people are buying it for Christmas, which just bumps up the sales for sure. Same for Super Mario Bros. Wonder, which in November it was the 5th ranked game and it bumped up to number 2. It is also worth mentioning that Nintendo does not track its digital sales, so it could be even higher as far as we know. So a pretty interesting list. Seeing Avatar Frontiers of Pandora at number 6 and its first month out, that's pretty bad, to be honest. Being underneath Marvel's Spider-Man and Hogwarts Legacy, especially Hogwarts Legacy, which came out all the way back in February, I think. That's pretty wild. All right, let's get into the top 10 selling video games of 2023. And this is pretty interesting. At number 1 is Hogwarts Legacy, the best-selling game of 2023. At number 2 is Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3. At number 3 is Madden NFL 24. At number 4 is Marvel's Spider-Man 2. At number 5 is The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. At number 6 is Diablo 4. At number 7 is Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. At number 8 is Mortal Kombat 1. And at number 9 is Star Wars Jedi Survivor. And at number 10 is EA Sports FC 24. Seeing Hogwarts Legacy just totally dominate the year is so surprising to me because I feel like that game came out, everyone's like, yeah, it was pretty good. And then everyone just sort of stopped talking about it. But it seems like the casual fan and the Harry Potter fans especially really gravitated towards it, and it really just ate every other game's lunch this year. So shout out to Hogwarts Legacy. I know it's a bit of a controversial game just because of some of the weird stuff that the creators said. But setting all that aside, like, congrats to them. It seems like they're going to keep Warner Bros. Games in business because Suicide Squad is coming out soon, and that might put them out of business. All right. Well, that's the show. I really appreciate you guys all hanging out with me. And we'll be back next week for sure. I'm back. I'm ready to talk about gaming news again. I'd love to hear what you guys think about this gaming news down in the comments below. If you have anything that you want to hear me talk about, just leave a comment down below. And of course, you can watch me live at twitch.tv/lonercast. We're playing all sorts of stuff. For example, I have been playing that Last of Us Remastered. I've been trying out that new roguelike. and I think it's a ton of fun. I think it's really fun. It seems a little hollow in its content, to be honest, but the gameplay in that game is just so much fun. It sucks we're not getting factions. I'm still really, really upset about that. So this is something to hold over. I've also been playing the single player of The Last of Us Remastered. As far as visually, like, I can't tell too much that the visuals look much better because that game looked amazing to begin with. But I will say I'm playing with the director's commentary on. So like during the cutscenes, you hear like Neil Druckmann, Ashley Johnson, Troy Baker, all of them sort of talking about what it was like to make these scenes and stuff, and that's been really cool. Also playing on grounded mode, which I never got a chance to do. So it's been a lot of fun revisiting that game. It's such a wonderful game. If you haven't played it, which if who hasn't played that game, but if you haven't played it, definitely check it out, and definitely play it before season 2 of The Last of Us comes out, or don't. Maybe you will find that you'll enjoy the second season much better, because there's a lot of twists and turns in the second game, and I can't wait to see how they handle that in season 2, which supposedly is coming out later this year or early next year, maybe. I don't know. But all that being said, I really appreciate you guys hanging out, and I will check you next week in Last Week in Games.